You can add them to a stew, boil them in water, mash them, bake them, or turn them into crispy fries, my favorite. Welcome to another episode of Remnant Stew. I'm Leah.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve. Join us today as we pay homage to that delicious yet humble food, the potato. This is Season 5, Episode 7, This Spud's for You.
If you have an appetite for the strange and bizarre, then pull up a chair and grab a spoon for another intriguing serving of Remnant Stew. Remnant Stew is gluten-free, organic, made from all natural, free-range ingredients, and guaranteed to provide the recommended daily serving of curiosity.
Well, back during the September of 2023, my wife and I, along with my sister and brother-in-law, okay, I know I use that phrase a lot in these podcasts, but we travel together quite a bit, and we have a lot of experiences together that I like to share here. But anyway, we were traveling through Atlantic Canada. That would include the provinces of Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. We had a really terrific time. The scenery was beautiful, and the people were quite friendly. One day we found ourselves in the town of O'Leary, Prince Edward Island. In this town, we came across an exciting attraction, the Canadian Potato Museum. Woo! After taking a few pictures with Sir Kraken out front next to a giant tuber, we took the tour of the museum. Evidently, Prince Edward Island is Canada's Idaho, as Canadian potatoes, or Prince Edward Island potatoes, in large white sacks can be purchased in Canadian supermarkets and grocery stores, as well as in the Canadian Potato Museum's gift shop. And they also,
what a souvenir.
had them for sale right there. They also sold large bags of a brand called, I'd never heard of this brand, Covered Bridge potato chips. In fact, the badge was so large that it was called the Weekender.
Nice.
Now, featured prominently on the cover of the bag were the 3 different flavors of chips, but they weren't just listed. They were drawn cartoon style. 3 different potatoes were relaxing on beach chairs. On the left was a sporty, nautical-looking potato, which represented sea salt and cracked pepper flavor. In the middle was a cool dude-looking potato wearing a wire-frame shade who represented smoking sweet barbecue. Kind of see what they did there. Then the potato on the right was also wearing shades and a backwards baseball cap, who represented sweet and spicy jalapeno flavor. All 3 potatoes were sipping some kind of beverage out of little glasses with little umbrellas in their beach chairs there. Well, after a sampling of a few of the chips, and I like the sea salt and cracked pepper flavor the best.
Did you bring those?
No, I didn't bring any of those, but I did bring you a picture to look at. I'm sorry, you can't see this at home, but we walked under this grand archway, which led to the amazing potato exhibit. And we knew this because it was labeled thus on a sign over the arch with the word exhibit flanked by 2 oversized potatoes. Check it out there.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right, that is pretty cool. Sorry, folks, you can't see that.
Oh, maybe we'll include it in our social media. And I got to say, the exhibit contained all the excitement that you might expect from such a billing. There were numerous displays containing information about all things potato, and some of what I learned, though, will be presented in this episode. However, for me, the highlight of the museum was a special room where about a dozen decaying potatoes were displayed in little potato-sized coffins. Behind
Wait, what?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure, why not?
Behind each coffin was an explanation as to the fungus, insect, or disease which was responsible for that potato's demise. And yes, it was a room of hushed tones and deep reverence in honor of the fallen Spuds. So today's episode is all about that humble but lovable potato.
So, was it tombstones?
No,
Rest in potato.
They were just little coffins with an explanation behind it. Yeah.
Well, it might surprise you to learn that the potato originated in South America.
Well, I'm surprised.
Color him surprised. According to a website called vegetablefacts.net, very interesting,
Yeah.
The first people to inhabit the Andes Mountains of present-day Peru some 10,000 years ago found potatoes growing wild in the mountains. Over the years, they managed to domesticate the plant, and then its use spread throughout the continent. Are you thinking of domesticating dogs? Is that what, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Well, they were wild.
Okay, yeah.
They were wild potatoes at
They
first.
had the potato roundup,
but then they're tame potatoes. Yeah.
Get along, little doggies.
Moving on.
Tame taters. Okay.
When the Spanish arrived in the 1530s, They went into the highlands looking for gold.
And they found tater.
They found golden taters.
Right.
They found potatoes instead. The Spanish were so intrigued by how sturdy and resilient potatoes were that they brought them back to Spain with them. And by the 1600s, potato harvesting had spread across most of Europe.
Right.
In most places,
You get a potato, I get a potato.
you potato, me potato.
potato.
In most places, the potato was readily accepted and enjoyed by Europeans. However, in Prussia, Eastern Germany, the peasants were really wary.
No
of the
potato
new
for you.
the potatoes, well, here's the thing. Potatoes are part of the botanical family, which includes several plants like deadly nightshade,
Oh, okay.
which is poisonous to humans. And so a lot of people thought that the potato would be poisonous.
Right.
And I think, we went through this with, I think we talked about this with tomatoes.
Yeah, they were.
Maybe
Yeah.
that
Also-
people thought for a long time that tomatoes were poisonous.
That's right.
Anyway, surprisingly, another plant in this botanical family is tobacco. So
I mean, potatoes and tobacco are in the same family.
that's right.
That's a crazy family. Okay.
Well, because
Can
of
you
the
smoke a
resemblance-
potato?
Yeah,
I'm sure
Well, you
you
can,
could.
but you get a baked potato.
I guess.
Oh my God.
Move it along.
But because of the resemblance to toxic plants, many people in Prussia were fearful of eating the potatoes, and some even took to calling them the devil's apples.
Yeah. Wow.
If they grew potatoes at all, they fed them to their livestock instead of to their kids.
Oh, that's
We're not
so
eating
sad.
that. Feed it to the pig.
Well, then here along came King Frederick the Great, aka the Potato King.
Yay, our hero.
Frederick was king of Prussia from 1740 to 1786 and was a proud potato proponent. Say that fast 3 times.
Proud potato.
You did amazing.
proponent.
No
Okay, there you go.
stuttering.
I know.
That was awesome.
He did well.
King Frederick saw the spuds as a cheap filling source of nourishment, which that's
Well,
exactly
yeah.
what they are.
Yeah.
And I don't, nourishment is like we're playing fast and loose with that. But
They're
they
a
are,
space
honestly,
filling.
they
They absolutely
are.
are. They're very nourishing.
They've kept people
get to that in a
from
minute.
starving
Yeah.
to death. But he always served potatoes at his royal banquets. And he also made free seed potatoes available to the public. But there's a saying in German, quote, "What the peasant doesn't know, he will not eat."
Well, it's not
Unquote.
a terrific saying, but
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, if it was true,
Yeah, okay, they won't eat
Frederick, and this is an interesting story. Frederick had to get creative in order to get the doubting public to try the sustaining food.
Right.
In the 1740s, there was a food shortage in Prussia, partly due to their war with Austria, because war does that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Frederick was concerned about starvation among the population, and he began racking his brain for ways to convince the people to eat
Thank you.
potatoes.
Great.
Eat your potato.
Finally, he hit upon an idea. He planted a large plot of land in Berlin with potatoes and placed heavy guard around the property, which gave the illusion that the plants were extremely valuable. But he removed the guards during the night, and this encouraged the
Looting?
increasingly hungry Berliners to sneak into the royal garden and steal some of the unguarded potatoes.
okay.
So they're purloined potatoes.
Yeah.
We'll have recipes for that. His plan worked brilliantly, and soon the potato was embraced by the entire population. And today, potatoes make up a sizable portion of a German meal.
Okay.
So, and my stepdad is German, and he makes Kartoffelpuffer, which is potato pancakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good.
They're
I've had
pretty
those.
really
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
King Frederick is buried at Sanssouci Palace in the Berlin suburb of Potsdam. It's quite common today for visitors to leave potatoes on his tombstone.
Oh, that's a nice little tradition. Yeah.
And let's just stop for a moment and appreciate how stinky a rotting potato is. Like, have you ever had like
Just
one in a
curious.
bag
Yeah.
and then like you
yeah,
let that?
It's just over.
It'll go
Oh.
bad.
Well, I mean, can you imagine walking up on this grave and seeing these monsters? With all
Yeah,
these, like,
yeah. You know how they sprout, and
Right.
you guys are hearing my daughter Tori.
I thought that was
She's
Sally,
in
our
the-
script girl.
You're right.
She's in the studio with us today, as she's supposed to be.
And she's eating potatoes right now, in fact.
I think that was the sign to do homework.
to me.
Okay. In the United
it's
States, the first potatoes were brought by a group of Scots-Irish folks who settled in New Hampshire in 1718. In fact, a clergyman named Reverend James McGregor was credited with planting the first potatoes in North America.
Oh.
But like their distant Prussian cousins, many Americans did not like the idea of eating tubers themselves, so they just fed them to their livestock.
Yeah.
This all changed with the 1801 election of, and this is going to be fascinating. This
Yeah.
is
Okay.
so President Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
During the 1780s, Jefferson served as a U.S. ambassador to France. While in Paris, he became acquainted with various ways of cooking potatoes, and he brought some back to plant in his garden at his home in Virginia.
Right.
When he became president, potatoes were served at official White House dinners, which is my kind of dinner.
Yeah, right.
Jefferson was especially fond of the way the restaurants in Paris prepared the potatoes by slicing them and then seasoning before crisping them in hot oil. And he referred to them as potatoes served in the French manner. And we refer to them today as French fries. So thank you, TJ.
Yay. Woo-hoo. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson.
In addition to vegetablefacts.net, some information came from Atlas Obscura and some from NewEnglandHistoricalSociety.com.
Well, now, from time to time, we have touched on the problems between the English and the Irish. In fact, in our Season 4, Episode 14, titled Outlandish Artifacts, we talked about the historic town of Lincoln, New Mexico, and the Lincoln County War. This conflict was in the late 1870s, and it was by rivaling factions led by two local businessmen. One was English, and the other was Irish. Now, throughout the 1800s, Ireland was effectively ruled as a colony by England. Laws governing Ireland were issued from Parliament in London. Though the Irish did have representation in Parliament, these members were generally of the landowning class and who had come from England in the first place. So the ordinary everyday Irishman didn't really have much representation. In fact, up until 1829, Irish Catholics were even prohibited from owning or leasing land. They couldn't vote. They couldn't hold elected office. So the potato had been introduced to Ireland in the late 1700s by English property owners and soon had become a staple of the poor, particularly during the cold winter months. However, in 1845, a mold known as, this is a hard word, Phytophthora infestans, which they shortened to P. infestans, which I can understand why. Anyway, it caused a destructive plant disease that spread rapidly throughout Ireland. This disease ruined about half of the potato crop that first year and about 3/4 of the potato crop for each of the next 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Of course, this had a devastating effect on Ireland's poorest population, especially the tenant farmers who relied heavily on potatoes as a source of food. As the situation grew worse in the first year, 1845, the Irish petitioned Queen Victoria in Parliament to take action. Parliament as a whole was slow to act, though some members individually donated enough money to buy corn from America, which was shipped to Ireland. However, this did little to alleviate the suffering. When the potato crops failed in the following years, some members of Parliament took it to mean that God was punishing the Irish for their Catholic leanings. Incredibly, in spite of the suffering in Ireland, other Irish food crops and livestock continued to be exported to England. In fact, some research suggests that exports from Ireland actually increased during the potato famine. Now you may have a bit more of an understanding why the Irish aren't too fond of the English. By the time the Great Hunger, as it is known in Ireland, ended in 1852, more than 1 million men, women, and children had died of either starvation or of illness brought on by malnutrition. In addition, another 2 million Irish immigrated out of the country to escape the famine. The great majority of them came to the United States. Before the famine, the population of Ireland was around 8 million, but afterward it dropped to less than 5 million. And with continued immigration out of Ireland over the next century, the population would stay at this level until the 1960s. Over 100 years, they never gained their population back to pre-famine levels.
Oh, wow.
It is still being debated whether Parliament ignored the plight of the starving Irish out of some type of hateful malice or just gross inefficiency. Nevertheless, the Great Hunger, or potato famine, left an indelible impact on the Emerald Isle, and those who survived and stayed behind developed a fervor for national independence. It would take several more years for Ireland to achieve full independence from England, but it finally did occur in 1922. In 1997, on Ireland's 75th birthday, the British Prime Minister Tony Blair issued a formal apology to Ireland for the UK government's handling of the crisis. I think it was something like, "We're terribly sorry. We really deeply regret it." This information came from History.com and also from Parliament.uk.
Well, now this isn't in our script, but as you were reading that, it made me think about it, how we sent corn,
right,
over there. They're actually, and I don't know that the corn being sent over there had anything to do with the Native Americans, but during the pandemic, during the recent pandemic,
Right.
A couple of, it really hit
Native
Americans.
Yeah.
It really hit them hard. And from Ireland, they sent money, tens of thousands of dollars, to help the Native Americans of these two tribes. I want to say the Choctaw and, I can't.
Maybe that was a nod back to the corn that was sent over to Ireland during the famine.
Okay, during the famine, the Choctaw tribe in 1847 sent... this is a quote from pentoday.com. The Choctaw Nation sent the Irish monetary aid during the Irish potato famine. During this dark period in Irish history, over 1 million Irish died while they were abandoned by their British rulers. But the Irish never forgot and are repaying the generosity of the Choctaw Nation now in 2020, not forgetting that they too were suffering greatly under British rule during that period also.
Well, so that was a good find, Leah. Good for you.
I don't remember where I read that, but that came up.
I'm proud to be your partner in this podcast.
Hey, you. Yes, you there listening to this podcast. Have we told you lately just how much we appreciate you? Well, we do. So much. And so can we ask for a favor?
It's an easy favor. If you would, please take just a couple of minutes to give us a review on whatever app you're listening on. It may not seem like a lot, but it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it's all about algorithms, altruisms, Pythagorean theorems, all that techie stuff, which boils down to the fact that it helps other listeners and sponsors find us. So if you enjoy Remnant Stew, it would mean a lot if you took the time to give us a review. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Right.
Well, now let's shift from the sad topic of the Irish potato famine to some happy childhood memories.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to talk about Mr. Potato Head.
Yay!
And I just want to say that we do have an upcoming episode in the works where we talk about toys.
Right.
But this is a sneak preview, or not a sneak preview, but just a little taste of toys.
A little taste of toys, yeah.
In 1948, a Brooklyn-based designer and inventor named George Lerner sought to give children a toy that they could design themselves.
Right.
His toy package supplied goofy-looking eyes, noses, lips, and other assorted body parts for kids to use decorating potatoes or other handy vegetables. But the kids had to supply their own potatoes.
So you had to, you stick to the parts to stick onto a potato. Okay.
You can buy stuff like that for pumpkins today, for like,
that's
so
true.
I can understand. Yeah. And who would want to receive buy a box with potato in it. Open it up and it's not so fresh. Right. According to an article on ScreenRant.com, Mr. Lerner's idea was a little slow to catch on, but in the early 1950s, it was bought by a cereal company, which included the plastic components inside boxes of their breakfast product.
Oh, man.
So, do you remember getting prices in cereal boxes?
For sure. They were awesome. You buy a cereal you hated just to get the prize inside there.
And we used to go through it and me and my sister would try to get the prize.
Dump it out.
Who gets it first?
Yeah, who gets it first? Well, after a year or so, the rights to Mr. Potato Head were bought from the cereal company by the Hassenfeld brothers, whose company is now called Hasbro.
Yeah, Hasbro.
They saw potential in the toy and agreed to pay Mr. Lerner $500 plus 5% of each sale. Through their successful marketing campaign of the early 1950s, Mr. Potato Head became a top seller and a favorite among boys and girls. In fact, according to this article, the 1952 Hasbro commercial for Mr. Potato Head was the very first television commercial for a toy.
Oh, that's
really?
Cool, yeah.
By the late...
In fact, their slogan was, boy, oh boy, it's a Hasbro toy. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. By the late 1950s, the creators...
By the way, Hasbro, if you'd like to sponsor a podcast, we'd like to talk with you.
By the late 1950s, the creators at Hasbro decided that it was not good for Mr. Potato Head to be alone. Thus, they came out with Mrs. Potato Head, and soon to be followed by their potato children named Spud and Yam.
Oh, I wonder if they put him to sleep and took one of his ribs out or something.
Oh my gosh! I don't remember. I know Mrs. Potato Head, but I don't remember.
I've seen Spud or Yam.
I don't think I've ever met their children. Even into the 1960s, children were still required to furnish their own potatoes. You can imagine the displeasure of parents as the potato toys would get messy and moldy after a while. I can imagine finding it under the bed of my,
what is that smell?
Right.
Have you washed your feet lately? No, it's a potato.
Where's your potato?
So in 1964, Hasbro came out with the plastic version of Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head with pre-drilled holes for the many attachments.
Right.
For just $2, you got 2 plastic bodies plus noses, eyes, mustache, pipe, feet with and without shoes, arms, etc. The deluxe version for $5 included Spud and Yam, along with a model of the Potato Head house featuring kitchen appliances. Like,
which would have been why I didn't have Spud or Yam.
You didn't have the whole the whole Spud house.
No.
The box cover featured the Mr. and Mrs. suggestively making eyes at each other.
Good one. Seriously, they were. You should look at that box cover. Yeah.
While Spud and Yam played in toy cars. A label on the box proclaimed, quote, America's most lovable toy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Throughout the 70s and 80s, the Potato Head clan maintained its popularity with children. Even though the electronic age was advancing, there was something fun and satisfying about this simple concept toy. In 1986, the Christian Broadcasting Network's Saturday morning lineup included a half-hour cartoon called Potato Head Kids. This was the forerunner of the VeggieTales, which came out in the 1990s.
Oh, I love the VeggieTales.
Yeah, I do too.
Yep.
Speaking of the 1990s, the Potato Heads' popularity soared to new heights as they appeared in the Toy Story movies.
Yeah.
The popular Pixar series featured numerous familiar toys who were given their own voice and personalities, in case you didn't know. Mrs. Potato Head did not appear in Toy Story, but joined her husband in Toy Story 2. And I had to stop and think about that for a minute. I was like, she wasn't in the first one? But she wasn't.
I don't think so. They were trying him out first to see if it was going to go, and then they brought her along with the second one, I guess.
By the year 2000, Mr. Potato Head was inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame. Then, from 2007 to 2009, he was honored with a float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that takes us back to our very first episode.
That's what I was going
Balloon
to say. We covered
full circle again.
all of the mishaps that can happen in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So check out our first episode. It's still one of my favorites.
Yeah, balloonacy, yeah.
Even today, the Potato Heads remain very popular with children. According to CBSNews.com, the Potato Heads have sold well over 100 million units in over 30 countries since their inception in 1948. By any definition, that is one hot potato.
So that was the original inventor. He still gets 5% of every sale. So he's doing pretty
he
well.
Did good.
His family's doing quite well.
That was his more than $1 million idea.
Yeah, easily.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
He banked.
Well, now, as mentioned earlier, potatoes were originally found in the Andes Mountains of South America, but this amazing plant food does not need high altitude or cold temperatures to thrive. In fact, potatoes are grown in all 50 states. We have some Texas potatoes right here in the studio today. These were grown on the XIT Ranch up in the Texas Panhandle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I didn't realize they grew potatoes up there until I found this bag before this show. Anyway, they also are grown in 125 countries around the world. Potatoes are the 4th most cultivated crop in the world after rice, wheat, and corn, making them the most prevalent non-cereal crop that we have. Today in the United States, when we think of potatoes, we think of the state of Idaho. In fact, the phrase famous potatoes is emblazoned on Idaho car license plates. Have you ever seen one of those?
Yep.
Famous potatoes. But it might surprise you to learn that before World War II, another state was the leading producer of SPUD'S.
No.
It's our only state with a monosyllable. Of course, that would be the beautiful state of Maine. And most of Maine's potatoes are grown in Aroostook County, which borders French Canada, and maintains a strong Acadian culture. Potatoes still play a big part in this county's economy and culture. School children still take a potato vacation each fall to help with the harvest. Well, that's kind of fun, isn't it?
A potato vacation.
Yeah. To grow a potato, you don't plant seeds, you plant potatoes, or at least parts of potatoes.
Just need a bit.
Any section of a potato that has an eye can grow a new potato plant. Thus, one potato that has multiple eyes can be sliced up and replanted, creating several new plants. Here's a fun fact. In 1974, an Englishman named Eric Jenkins grew 370 pounds of potatoes from one plant.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty impressive.
That's impressive.
Another fun fact, 2 other Brits, Jay East and Jay Busby, are tied for growing the largest recorded potato, weighing in at 7 pounds, 1 ounce.
That's going to take a lot
Now,
of butter.
This record has been challenged by a New Zealand couple who recently unearthed what they claim is a 17-pound, very ugly, mutant-looking potato, which they named Doug. The Guinness people are still looking into that one. The average American eats 124 pounds of potatoes per year.
Some of us more than others, though.
Yeah,
Just
right.
saying.
Germans eat twice as much as Americans do, and that's a big part of their diet. The United States Department of Agriculture has said that a diet of whole milk and potatoes would provide almost all of the food elements necessary for the maintenance of the human body. So that's pretty impressive.
Wait.
A diet
you can live on whole milk and potatoes alone.
Yeah, that's what they said. Well, they say almost all.
Almost.
Almost.
What's missing?
I don't know. Hey,
does ketchup?
Yeah, probably that would fill it in
leafy
right
greens.
there. Well, you put a little chive on there, and then you got it.
There you go.
A regular-sized potato is 99% fat-free and contains only about 110 calories. It's loaded with vitamin C and contains several minerals, including more potassium than a banana. That's pretty impressive. Go potatoes.
But is it radioactive?
Well, we'll get there in a
right?
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, come on.
There are over 5,000 varieties of potatoes worldwide. This excessively large number is evidence of the potato's adaptability to differing climates and growing conditions, and some were also created for unique tastes. By the way, sweet potatoes are not actually potatoes. They're not even in the same family at all, as mentioned above. Yeah.
Phil.
Potatoes are in the same family as tobacco and nightshade, whereas sweet potatoes are in the same family as morning glories. That's right. In fact, I can remember as being newlyweds, my first wife and I, we couldn't afford to buy plants, so we made a nice plant out of a sweet potato once. You stick it in water until it sprouts, and then you plant it in some soil, and it's really a pretty plant.
Yeah, it flowers, right?
Yeah, I don't remember if it flowers. They're really pretty green, leafy plant.
I don't know. But plant taxonomy, it's so weird.
Yeah.
It is so weird.
Generally, potatoes fall into three categories: starchy, waxy, and all-purpose.
Okay.
Starchy potatoes tend to have more starch, but they also tend to be drier. Examples of starchy potatoes would be russets and King Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
These potatoes absorb more fat and are best used for baking or for frying, but their lack of moisture might cause them to fall apart when boiling or using them in a stew. Waxy potatoes include varieties like Nadine and Dutch Cream.
I've never heard of those.
They are less starchy and have a higher sugar content. They hold their shape well and are suitable for boiling and roasting, as well as adding to cold dishes like potato salad. They're not as good for mashing as they're hard to break up. All-purpose potatoes like Yukon Gold can be used for almost anything. And, new potatoes, those are small all-purpose potatoes that are dug up early before their skins have set, and they are delicious boiled or steamed. I love new potatoes.
Stuck in a crawfish boil.
Me too.
When selecting your potatoes, you should look for those that are well-formed, smooth, firm with eyes, and no discolorations, cracks, bruises, or soft spots. You should also avoid green potatoes, as they have been exposed to light for too long and will have a bitter taste. Some red and white potatoes may have been sprayed with a thin layer of colored wax to make them appear fresher than they actually are. Speaking of freshness, potatoes can stay fresh for several months as long as you store them properly. Until ready for use, keep potatoes stored in a dark, dry space. Do not wash potatoes before storing them, as that speeds up the decay. Also, do not store uncooked potatoes in the refrigerator. Potatoes stored in cold spaces will discolor, and the taste can turn unpleasant. One more fun fact about growing potatoes. Potatoes were the first vegetable successfully grown in space. The University of Wisconsin, for sure. The University of Wisconsin teamed up with NASA back in 1995 to bring this experiment to life. Clippings from a potato plant were gathered by researchers and then divided into two groups. One group accompanied astronauts on the Space Shuttle Columbia, and the others were kept in Wisconsin and acted as a control group. When the shuttle returned and the two groups were compared, there was no noticeable differences, so they grew well in space.
Wow.
Now, you might remember the 2015 movie, The Martian.
Oh, it's an awesome movie.
Starring Matt Damon. You might recall that Damon kept himself alive on the red planet by creatively growing and harvesting potatoes. Information in this segment comes from thefactsite.com, IdahoPotatoMuseum.com, and FoodRepublic.com.
And now for something completely off topic and off kilter. Brace yourself for the oddity du jour.
A survivorship bias is the logical error of concentrating on entities that passed a selection process while overlooking those that did not, thus leading to an incorrect conclusion because of incomplete data.
Well, I'm glad somebody cleared that up.
Yeah.
Wow, that was concise. So let's dumb it down a bit. We've all known those kinds of claims.
Us, right?
For me, too.
I'm stuck. Wait, what?
We've all known those kinds of claims like, My grandmother has smoked a pack a day since she was 12, and now she's 95, so smoking can't be that bad for you. Or, we used to drive 65 miles per hour down the highway with a beer in the hand and no seatbelt, and never once did I die. These are examples of survivorship bias.
Survivorship bias. Okay.
Yeah. Getting through a particular set of dangerous circumstances doesn't make those circumstances any less dangerous. It makes you lucky. And it's made many people rely on these types of testaments to justify their own unsafe behaviors.
Right. I'm sorry, my generation is pretty bad about saying these things. Like, we used to ride in the back of pickups all the time.
Exactly.
You know?
And we didn't die, and we didn't have bike helmets and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter
Nobody ever
is,
fell out. Well,
we got
occasionally
lucky
they did, but
all the time.
Childhood mortality has gone down.
Yeah.
Just saying.
The boomer generation, that's my generation. Yeah, we're pretty bad about bringing these things up.
Well, this bias has even led military officials concerned with the safety of our enlisted to make bad choices that almost cost the lives of many. There's a famous or infamous graph that comes from World War II depicting a multitude of bullet hole locations on the wingtips, tail, and midsection of bombers that were able to limp it back to home base. The commanders, seeing these holes, proposed that we should add more armor to those areas where the planes are getting shot the most. That makes sense, right?
Okay.
If a plane is constantly getting shot in those areas, then we should protect them with more armor. Yeah. Luckily, though, a statistician named Abraham Wald that was working in the Applied Mathematics Department of the U.S. military, didn't know we had one of those, chimed in and pointed out that the only data we had was from bombers that were able to make it back home.
Right, that makes sense, yeah.
Right, so this suggested that the bullet hole-ridden areas were actually the safest areas to get shot, if there is one, and that the places on the airplane that weren't represented in that data, being near the cockpit, engines, and ailerons, were the places that needed the extra armor.
Because those were the planes that didn't
make
it back.
Planes
now, that was some
areas.
good thinking right there.
Right. They were the unfortunate ones that couldn't make it back home and weren't represented in the data.
So that's what you call a paradigm shift.
Right.
Yeah.
Big
paradigm shift.
By the way, Masters of the Air is a great series. I've been watching it. Just came out. So.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, great series.
Well, this was a very clever catch by Mr. Wald. The military put his information to work and bolstered those areas to great effect. More bombers and supporting planes were able to make it back home.
That was good.
Yeah, and we've got one more instance of this phenomenon. It comes from World War I, where generals began questioning the efficacy of their soldiers' new helmets due to a significant increase in hospitalizations due to head injuries. Now, this is a similar situation. The generals figured that the new helmet technology must not be up to snuff if soldiers were getting hurt. The opposite was true, however, since the new Brody helmets were allowing many more soldiers to survive head trauma, leading them to land in the hospital instead of the bottom of a trench.
Yeah.
Keep this bias in mind then when making your next decision. I got my info from iflscience.com and clearthinking.co and good old Wikipedia.
No, that was really thought-provoking. Good job there, Sam.
Well, now here's something that you might not know about potatoes. They are very good conductors of electricity, and they can be used as a kind of battery power. According to SmithsonianMag.com, one of my favorite websites, researchers at Hebrew University in Jerusalem have found that a potato that has been boiled for 8 minutes and then cut into quarters can be part of a serviceable battery.
Wow.
The potato doesn't do those by itself. It must be it must be sandwiched between a piece of copper and a piece of zinc, which are then connected by a wire. What the potato does is act as what is known as a salt bridge between the two pieces of metal. This allows the electron currents to move freely along the wire, which creates electricity. The researchers are excited about this discovery as a potential source of portable electric lighting in third world nations. At about 1/10 of the cost of an AA battery, a AA battery, the potato configuration can power an LED light for as long as 40 days.
Oh, wow.
That's
It could
impressive.
also provide power to charge cell phones or other personal electronics in remote regions without access to a power grid. Compared to a kerosene lamp, which are used in many developing countries, the potato kit can provide a comparable light for a fraction of the cost.
Nice.
On Amazon.com, you can actually purchase a potato power kit for about $16. The makers claim that the kit can also work with bananas and strawberries, but the potatoes are preferred as they do not attract as many insects as decaying fruit.
Yeah.
Plus, potatoes are sturdier and can be stored for longer periods of time before their use.
That's pretty interesting. Somebody out there needs to try that potato battery thing and see if you can get it to light up a light and send us a picture.
Yeah.
We want to see that.
Or a video.
Or a video. Yeah, there you go. Well, now on our Season 4, Episode 1, called New Beginnings, we talked about the great Cincinnati manufacturing giant Procter & Gamble. You may recall this company began in the 1830s when two brothers-in-law teamed up to share source material for their respective soap and candle companies. Well, in the late 1950s, a Procter & Gamble researcher named Frederick Bauer began working on a huge problem that was plaguing Americans in that decade. No, not the Cold War, rather the problem of greasy, broken potato chips. Bauer led the team that invented Pringles.
Oh, yeah.
And the people rejoiced.
Yay.
Oh, but wait a minute. Not everyone was happy. According to BuzzFeed.com, the makers of other brands of potato chips claim that Pringles weren't actually potato chips, as they are made from a slurry of rice, wheat, corn, and potatoes, and then pressed into their distinctive shape. They took Procter & Gamble to court in an attempt to prevent them from using the term potato chips. After several years of court rulings and appeals, the Food and Drug Administration stepped in. In 1975, the FDA ruled that Procter & Gamble could label Pringles, quote, potato chips, but they had to also add, quote, made from dried potatoes to the label, and it had to be written in font that was at least half as large as the size of the largest font used to write potato chips. So, yeah, you can call them potato chips even though they were made of something else and potatoes. While Procter & Gamble won this battle, in 2009 they reversed course and claimed that Pringles weren't potato chips but just snacks. And they claimed this in the United Kingdom, where potato products were taxed but snacks were not. The case contains some truly wild arguments concerning the, quote, essence of a potato. I'd like to have listened in on some of that.
Right.
In the end, the UK court ruled that Pringles were, in fact, potato chips and that Procter & Gamble owed $160 million in back taxes. So that kind of stung a little bit. Well, now, while we're here, let's enjoy some Pringles facts, shall we?
Of course.
This is courtesy of Pringles.com. Pringles has 25 flavors in the United States and even more internationally. Of all the varieties, the top-selling flavors are original, cheddar cheese, barbecue, and sour cream and onion. I like sour cream and onion myself.
Give me the barbecue.
You like that?
Mm-hmm.
I like salt and vinegar.
Salt and vinegar, yeah. The top of the Pringles chip has more flavor than the bottom, and thus many people prefer to eat them upside down for that extra flavor burst. Oh, yeah, this is interesting. The shape of a Pringle chip is called a hyperbolic paraboloid.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hyperbolic paraboloid. One Pringles chip contains about 10 calories. Oh, yes, and when the inventor Fred Bauer died, he was cremated, and his ashes were buried in a Pringles original can. Those are fun facts about Pringles.
Talked about that.
That's really getting into your work there.
And I just want to correct you real quick. Our Season 4, Episode 1, where we talked about Procter & Gamble, that was called Origins.
Origins, right.
Yeah, not New Beginnings.
Oh, that Origins, you're right.
One of our most beloved features here on Remnant Stew is our wacky annual holiday gift buying guide.
Yeah, that.
In case you missed it, you will definitely want to go back and check out our holiday episodes, Yuletide Tomfoolery, and Leftover Stew, as they contain some terrific, weird, and crazy gifts for that quirky person on your list. And yes, one of these gifts involved potatoes.
Yay!
In our Season 3, Episode 25, called 'Tis the Season, one of the featured gifts was called the potato parcel.
Potato parcel.
So what is that? According to the website, potatoparcel.com, a potato parcel is exactly like a postcard, only the picture and message is on an exciting potato rather than a dull piece of cardstock.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. We want the exciting potato our parcel.
Through the use of space-age technology, they will imprint your picture on a potato and then mail it to your distant friend or relative. You can even accessorize your potato photo with a funny quip. They have some stock suggestions like, quote, I just wanted to start your day off with a laugh.
Oh, I like that one, yeah.
Or, quote, did you hear about the potato that got its head chopped off? It was decapitated. And their website, come on, Phil. Those are just worthy of it.
I'm writing them down.
To use later. Yeah.
Their website claims 100% laughter or confusion guaranteed.
Right. A lot of confusion.
Right.
Who sent me a potato? Oh, it was Phil.
That's right. No confusion there. To make your gift potato extra special, you might want to consider one of their potato bundle packages.
Ooh, there's more? You can package them up?
There's more. These include the potato birthday bundle, the burlap sack and potato face bundle, or the potato love bear bundle, which is recommended for Valentine's Day, or anytime you're hoping to get that special someone in the mood.
Oh, there you go.
And how much does it cost to send a potato parcel? Well,
it's better than a bear potato.
Yeah, really.
Just for a potato postcard, it's $21.99. But the potato bundles range from $26.99 to $29.99.
What a bargain, folks. You want to run right down there.
So as soon as you finish listening to this episode, click on over to potatoparcel.com and surprise someone with a spudtacular gift.
Oh, nice one there. Nice one there.
Okay, all right. I'm over it. Okay, my original home state of Kentucky is famous for many reasons, including bluegrass music, sipping whiskey, and college basketball. But perhaps Kentucky's largest claim to fame has to do with horse racing.
Yeah.
The Kentucky Derby has been held on the first Saturday in May since 1875 and is considered the first jewel in horse racing's Triple Crown.
Well, the most exciting 2 minutes in sports, they call it. Yeah.
So they say that in Kentucky, they say that it's the home of fast horses and beautiful women, or beautiful horses and fast women, just depending on where you are in the state.
Right.
But as old and famous as the Kentucky Derby is, we are going to travel back 100 years further to England to learn about a famous racehorse with an interesting name. And I thought for certain that we covered this. I don't know how I knew about this particular horse rather than the research that we do here, but I did. And I couldn't find where
Sometimes
we
come
archives,
across things that we don't use, though.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I can't imagine not using this. But anyway,
Here it is now.
To it now.
In 1773, a horse was born on the estate of Willoughby Bertie, the 4th Earl of Abingdon.
Oh, that Willoughby Bertie.
That one. Bertie decided to name the horse Potatoes, and he instructed a stable boy to paint the name on the colt's feed bin. The stable boy, who was a bit of a goofball, decided to have some fun with the name.
Why not?
He painted P-O-T and then followed by 8 O's. So Pot 8 O's. Fortunately for him, Bertie also had a good sense of humor and was very amused by the boy's stunt. So the horse then ran under the name Potato, P-O-T-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-S. For his first few races. Eventually, the name was shortened to POT, the number 8 OS.
Oh, that makes sense.
I know this sounds like an urban legend. It sounds like just an urban legend or a tall tale, but the documentation is still intact, showing Potatoes was sired by a famous 18th century racehorse named Eclipse.
Okay.
Furthermore, Potatoes went on to have a very lucrative racing career himself. Between 1776 and 1783, Potatoes won more than 30 races, many of which were at the Newmarket track, which is more than 4 miles in length.
Oh, wow.
That's more than twice as long as horse races are today. Potatoes retired in 1783 and spent the rest of his life as a stud horse. He died in 1800 and was buried at a racetrack called Hare Park. In the early 2000s, a tree blew over and exposed Potatoes' resting place. So rather than rebury him, his skeleton was reassembled and is now on display at the National Horse Racing Museum in Newmarket, which is just north of London. So like Potatoes skeleton, that is like band name, right?
There you go.
This information came from horsenation.com and Wikipedia.
We have been doing Remnant Stew podcast for several years now, and we love our listeners. And it's our passion to share crazy and bizarre stories with you. Our continuing goal, however, is to increase our listenership and share our stories with an even larger number of people.
That's right, but growing a podcast audience takes a lot of time and energy. That's where you can help us out. Studies have shown that overwhelmingly, word of mouth is the best promotion tool for the growth of a podcast.
That's right.
So we're asking you to please share Remnant Stew with your friends. Pick out a favorite episode and pass it along.
Right.
We would really appreciate it. And thanks so much already for the support that you've given us. We love you guys.
We really do.
Very much so. Nice. Well, you probably recall the comedian Jeff Foxworthy kind of came on the scene back in the 1990s, and he's sort of his trademark was telling redneck jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're not from the United States and are unfamiliar with what a redneck is, well,
let us just tell you.
Here in the greater cut and shoot
here
area.
we're in the greater cut and shoot area. We have a nice assortment of rednecks around us. Kind of an exact definition is sort of vague, depending on who you ask.
You want an exact, vague definition.
But among other things, I think we can define a redneck as a generally rural person who has developed a continual pattern of acting without thinking. That fits in pretty well, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think so.
In fact, thinking plays an extremely minuscule role in a redneck's life. As the name might suggest, well, I just said this, we have a lot of rednecks here in the greater cut and shoot area. In fact, there's a popular local joke. What is a redneck's last words? Hey, y'all, watch this.
That's right.
Well, a while back, I happened to stop by one of my redneck neighbors, and he said he had something he wanted to show me. He soon emerged with a long piece of PVC pipe, a can of hairspray, a box of matches, and a bag of potatoes. I should have sensed danger immediately and left, but my curiosity got the best of me. And so I asked him...
I've done this.
I asked him what it was.
Yeah.
He said, quote, "That there is a potato gun," he said proudly. "How does it work?" I asked stupidly. Well, he stuck a potato into the end of the pipe and shook it down until it stopped near the base. Then he sprayed a liberal amount of hairspray through a small hole in the bottom of the pipe.
Yep.
Finally, he lit a match and stuck it through the hole, and poop! The potato shot out of the end of the pipe and flew into a nice arc over the top of his mobile home and clanged into a piece of metal on the far side. I must say it was impressive, and remarkably no one was hurt, but my senses returned to me, and I knew that the law of averages would soon catch up with me if I stayed longer. So after complimenting on his ingenuity, I politely said goodbye. According to Wikipedia, potato cannons, as they are called, are a popular pastime hobby with many people. Many mostly rural people, I would say. Okay. The potato cannon can trace its origin.
Just curious.
Okay, curious
odd.
people. Yeah.
Extra people.
Extra people.
There you go. The potato cannon can, I heard somebody describe it as good redneck fun. So, that's kind of
it works.
I'm surprised my boys never did that.
Right.
I really am.
They just haven't told you.
Right.
That may actually be
It might
true.
be one of those
You might
things
have
that mom
potatoes growing
shouldn't
in the
know
lake.
until later in life.
Much later.
The potato cannon can trace its origins to the World War II era Hallman projector, which was a shipboard anti-aircraft weapon, but I don't think they used potatoes in that one.
You shoot them right.
Yeah, you shoot them out. It was the same kind of a concept, though.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia article notes that potato cannons can be dangerous and can cause cranial fractures and blindness if the potato misfires, so we don't encourage using them.
Anything that involves an open flame and hairspray is probably something you want to stay away from.
Like the 1980s.
Exactly. You made your hair very flammable.
You're right.
Okay. From a website called digit.in, we find an article titled 18 Times Potatoes Invaded Pop Culture. It's a very interesting read, but we're not going to cover all 18, but we're going to just cherry pick, or should I say potato pick, the more interesting.
I see what you did there.
Are you familiar with a movie from 2005 called The Ringer? I had never heard of it, The Ringer. In it, actor Johnny Knoxville plays a character named Steve Barker who tries to earn some extra cash by participating in Special Olympics event for adults. Well, there's a problem, though. There's nothing special about Steve. But to convince the judges, he comes up with the phrase, "I can count to potato."
I can count
and so
to
this
potato.
has kind of become a catchphrase and a meme. Yeah. Okay, you may be familiar with an app on Google Play called Plants vs. Zombies. I knew you would be. This is a game where zombies are attacking your home, but they can be thwarted with well-attuned and properly aimed plants. Evidently, one of the favorites is the potato mine, which explodes when zombies step on them.
Yep.
And have you heard of Kickstarter, the website where people, they post ideas that they want to develop and are hoping to attract financial backers?
Right.
Well, in 2016, a guy named Zach Brown, not Zach Brown from the Zach Brown Band.
No, different one.
Different guy. went on Kickstarter as a joke and stated, I think this is brilliant. Like, this is so cool. He stated, quote, I want $10 to make some potato salad. He further stated, quote, with your help, we'll be well on our way to a successful potato salad. You will get a thank you posted to our website, and I will say your name out loud while making the potato salad. And he was surprised when a few people went along with the fun and chipped in, and the total rose to $35, which is well over 3 times, right?
What you needed for a potato salad.
He goes, wow, now I can make 4 times as much potato salad. So his math wasn't great.
Yeah,
but
rounding off.
But it was a good start. But then a news outlet did a feature on him, and the resulting exposure netted a total of over $55,000.
Oh, that's a lot of people to have to say when you're eating your potato salad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And he said, quote, now I can hire a chef to make the potato salad for me. And I guess he could hire a team of people to say all those names.
Right.
So moving on, next story. We all enjoy YouTube.
Right.
But sometimes comments can be cruel, just like any comment section on anything.
Yes.
It takes no courage whatsoever to sit behind your keyboard and crank out snarky insults. Some people, I think, get up and do this as a living.
Yeah.
One common statement that's used to criticize a low-quality video is, quote, it looks like it was recorded on a potato. And so that's become into the vernacular. So listening to our podcast, you could say, man, that sounds like it was recorded on a potato.
Especially if we include the outtakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of outtakes with this one, guys. Well, and I love old cartoons. In the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon, Steamboat Willie, the captain of the boat punishes Mickey for all of his misbehavior by throwing him into a potato bin and making him peel all the potatoes.
Right.
Mickey is rather passive-aggressive about this and peels the potatoes by cutting away most of them.
Yeah, there's a little bitty sliver like a French fry left at the end of the middle of the potato.
Each potato is just peeled down to almost nothing. And then remember the movie, and I love this one, Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yes.
Yeah. In this movie, Richard Dreyfuss plays an electrical lineman in Indiana who develops an obsession with UFOs. In one scene, he makes the Devil's Tower out of the mashed potatoes to the horror of his children. I watched that video. It is so, like, they're just watching him. He is so obsessed and so crazed by this that his family, like, they start crying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
but it was a pretty good. Yeah,
and I think
it was pretty good out of mashed potatoes.
He did a great
amazing job.
And I think we covered Devil's Tower in one of our episodes.
Right.
There's a whole...
It was one of the legends or something.
Legends about it.
National parks, maybe.
Well, now for our final story, we're going back to where we started at the beginning. Steve, you mentioned earlier about visiting the Potato Museum on Prince Edward Island.
It was a highlight,
in Canada. But I wonder if you've ever heard about the potato terrorists.
Potato terrorists,
Terrorists?
Plaguing farmers there back in just 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's just mean.
Potatoes
my spud.
are $1 million industry.
$1 billion.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, $1 billion. I read that wrong. $1 billion industry in Prince Edward Island. But in October of 2014, someone was intentionally trying to harm potato farmers by randomly inserting needles and pins in potatoes that were being shipped to markets. The altered spuds were discovered at a processing plant in Cavendish.
Yeah.
However, several other potatoes with needles or pins were discovered in grocery stores. So they got as far as grocery stores.
Oh, that's wrong.
In the market,
in 4 different Canadian provinces. This has been described as the most serious crisis to hit Prince Edward Island since the British conquest of Acadia in 1710.
Well, no, not a whole lot happens in Prince Edward Island. It's a beautiful place, very rural. So yeah, it's the worst thing that happened there in over 300 years.
But it's still very, it's serious.
Yeah.
Just, can you imagine eating something with a needle in it or a piece of metal?
You go to cut into it after you just baked it, and now you're looking at.
Yeah. Well, it's food terrorism, said potato farmer Alex, I think it's Docherty.
Yeah.
Quote, the people doing this are cowards, lower than a snake-wearing snowshoes.
Oh, that's a Canadian slur.
Snake-wearing snowshoes. They are really evil people, unquote. The Prince Edward Island Potato Farmers Collective offered a $500,000 reward for the capture of the perpetrator. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police were called in to investigate. Suspicion was directed toward members of an environmental group that had opposed the potato farmers' plans to dig deeper water wells. However, but no one was arrested. The Canadian government stepped in with funding to install metal detectors at the potato processing plants. This appears to have helped, as no more pins or needles have been discovered.
Oh, that's good.
And here is a fun fact. What tourist attraction in Cavendish, Prince Edward Island, is related to a beloved children's story?
Oh, Tori, I bet you know this one.
I bet she doesn't. I bet she doesn't. It's Anne of Green Gables, Farm and Home.
Yeah, she knew she totally knew that one.
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
This information came from theguardian.com and vice.com.
Phil here reminding you to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at Remnant Stew Podcast. Drop us an email to staycurious@remnantstew.com just to say hi or to let us know about any topics you would like to hear us cover in an upcoming episode.
Remnant Stew is a part of Rook and Raven Ventures and is created by me, Leah Lamp. Steve Meeker researches and writes each episode that we then host together. Our audio producer is Philip Sinkfeld. The Oddity du Jour is brought to you by Sam Lamp, theme music by Kevin MacLeod, and voiceover by Morgan Hughes. Special thanks goes out to Judy Meeker. For a complete list of sources for this episode, please see the episode's transcripts and there's only one transcript, and there's a link in the show notes.
Well, now, before you go, please hit the follow button so you won't miss an episode. Head over to Apple Music and leave us a review. We love reading those reviews. Yeah. Share Remnant Stew with your friends, your family, your potato salesman, and Mr. Potato Head if you run into him. Until next time, remember to choose to be kind and always stay curious.